Hello and welcome back to Let's Ruck. We have some stuff to talk about this week. Last week, Six Nations finished up. France had to play Scotland because of the postponed game during round 3. This became an important game because in the final round, France upset Wales, which not a lot of people saw coming. So this then turned into Wales had more points than uh, they had to sit and watch. And hope for the best as France played Scotland. And when France played Scotland, they had to win by more points. Not only win, but win by more points. It was a 20-point differential, I believe it was, that they had to win by. So they had to beat Scotland by 20 points. But in the end, all for naught. Didn't matter. Didn't matter at all. Scotland wins 27-23 to make Wales your 2021 Six Nations champions. This was an awesome turn of events because it was in the 84th minute of the game that this happened. Duhan Vandermeer was able to get the ball and just plow his way into there, score at the last second. And it was an awesome way to end a crazy Six Nations tournament. So, props to Scotland on making it interesting in the end. France, better luck next year. Wales, congratulations on your Six Nations championship. Into the exciting news of rugby, North America now has professional league. For those of you who don't know, rugby is broken into two codes. There's rugby union, which is where your 15s play comes from. And then there's rugby league. Same time frame, points are different, players on the field are different. It's a bit of a mess. So I'll give a quick breakdown on why this is exciting. There is now 2 professional rugby leagues in North America. The North American Rugby League was just announced this past week. Excuse me. There's going to be 14 teams through the United States and Canada. They're going to play. They're going to play basically in like bubbles, but it's traveling bubbles where they go. So like they're playing 10 rounds. So they're going to run from June through the end of August. And now this is where it gets interesting. So the 12 of the 14 teams, because they're in the United States, don't have to worry about travel restrictions like our friends to the north up in Canada are having to deal with right now. The out of the 14 teams, only 2 of them are from Canada. You have the Ottawa Aces and the Toronto Wolfpack, which I'm really excited. I'm going to get back to that one real quick in just a second. But the Toronto Wolfpack and the Ottawa Aces are the only 2 Canadian teams involved in the North American Rugby League. Now, they're definitely getting the short end of the stick here. I mean, silver lining, they don't have a whole bunch of wear and tear going into the playoffs, but they only play twice before playoffs start. And they only play each other. So, the Canada series is in... The first round is August 14th. And it's at... Toronto is at Ottawa. And then the following week, round 2, Ottawa's at Toronto. So both teams are getting a home game here, and like that, great. But then they go right into the playoffs, while the other 12 teams are playing 10 rounds. So they're getting way more game experience, chemistry, and just a better understanding of how everything is going to turn out for this season. While Canada, because of the rules that have been implemented by the government there, are only getting 2. So that sucks. Hopefully, it's a 1 year thing. These two teams did decide that they were going to stay in Canada, unlike the Toronto MLR team, who sought to play in the United States somewhere, and that's why they're here in Atlanta. They've decided to stay in Canada, and that's why this event is happening. It's really weird, but I'm excited to see this happening because the league is really. If you don't understand rugby, league's a bit simpler to watch because rugby union is constant going. So you go even to the tackle, you play for the ball. So you tackle, you show your hands. If you're a defensive player, you show your hands that you're up. You try and poach the ball, and hope that you don't get crushed by a rucker. In league, you tackle, you go to ground, and you back off. And you get 6 tackles. So it's basically plays like in football. You get 4 downs like football, but in league you get 6. So just like in football, most of the time when it happens in league, you'll get to your 5th down, 6th play happens, and they'll kick the ball. Whether they kick it downfield to the player or they kick it out of bounds, doesn't matter. They're kicking the ball just like you would punt in football. So if you don't understand rugby, league's gonna be the easier aspect for you to follow because it's closer, definitely in quotations here, it's closer to American football in the aspect that it's downs and not continuously going. And like in union, unless we knock on the ball or commit a penalty, we can keep the ball forever. League's not like that. You have your 6 downs and then the ball's turned over. The other thing that you need to understand that's different between rugby league and rugby union is the players. In rugby union, you have your 15 players. In rugby league, they don't have they only have 13. They don't have flankers. They're lock loose ends. They typically play like a flanker does in rugby union, where they're to the outside a bit more. So that's one of the main differences. Is there's only 13 players. The other thing is the field is longer. The range is like. The rugby union and rugby league fields can be the same size, and some cities who have both teams will make it so that this field stays the right size for both codes, for rugby league and rugby union, like Leeds over in England. Their field was shared between the Leeds Rhinos and Carnegie or Tyke, something like that. Their name changed, and so they shared the field for a while. But so that's the main differences that I'm gonna sum up real quick there. But back to the other point that had me excited. While I'm not going to being as there's a team here in Atlanta, I'm definitely going to be pulling for the Atlanta Rhinos. Homegrown town, gotta go for my boys here. Love having a rugby union team with rugby ATL. Rattlers, let's go. And now the Atlanta Rhinos. So I'm excited to see that. But the thing that definitely has me excited is Toronto Wolfpack. They were a part of Super League. Then they had financial issues with their ownership group, and it fell apart, and they ended up having a new ownership group. And at the end of last year, in October, November, they submitted a proposal to come back. The proposal was denied. So, Toronto said they were going to look elsewhere, but for the time being, they were shut down. Now, a lot of people, when you see a professional team do that, you think, oh, that's the end of it. I'm not going to lie. I honestly thought that was the end of the Toronto Wolfpack. And I'm glad to see that they were legitimately looking for other opportunities. And so, Toronto is back. The Wolfpack is back. And I'm excited to see that. So, I'm not going to lie. I'm definitely going to be pulling for Toronto Wolfpack in the Canada series in their best of two before the playoffs. Again, super sucks. Like, you're only getting 2 games going into the playoffs. That's a bummer. And then the quick thing that I wanted to go over was the playoff format that they have as of right now. The playoff format will begin August 28th, and that's the semifinals. The divisional finals will happen September 4th, and then the grand finals will happen September 12th. Now, the thing that's interesting is the number 1 seed will play the Canada winner. So, whoever has the better record, which they have to be going by points differential for this to make any sense since there's only 2 games. So, I definitely want to see how that pans out. So, the number 1 seed will face off Canada. Really feels like it's bullying at this point. You only give them 2 games, and then you give them the number 1 seed in the playoffs. That sucks. That definitely sucks. And so that'll happen. And then the second one is a 2 seed for 3 seed. It'll be interesting to see how all this happens. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited to see the professional North American Rugby League, how this will go off. I'm definitely excited to see the Atlanta Rhinos make the jump up. Because the Atlanta Rhinos were part of the United States Rugby League, which was a amateurs league. They did win a championship back in 2017, I believe it was. But now they're making the jump to the big boys. So we'll see how that goes. I'll give more updates as more news is brought out about the NARL. And now we're gonna kick over to the start of the MLR season. We had some very interesting times happening in the past 2 weeks of the season. So, the biggest shocker to me on how the season is going so far is the LA Guillotinis. Alright, the brand new team, the expansion team out in LA. I doubted them. I got a real special trait here, guys. The team that I doubt. If you're a gambler, not that I'm encouraging this, but if you're a gambler and I doubt a team consistently, maybe you should bet on them. Because I doubted Wales, and they ended up winning 6 Nations. I doubted the Guillotinis, and they're 2-0 on the season. Their first game of the season, they were at home, and they beat New England Free Jacks, which I thought they were going to have a tough game, and they were going to end up getting beat there, because I just thought that New England was going to run through them, honestly. And it was the exact opposite. First MLR game for the LA Guillotinis, they win 42-27. Their second game, they play the most dominant team in the MLR. In the 3 seasons they played, 2-time champion because there was no championship last year, the Seattle Seawolves. The LA Guillotinis run through them 57-26. What? Where did this come from? I'm gonna bet on the Guillotinis this time. They play in 2 weeks. They don't have a game on the 3rd. They have a bye this week. But in 2 weeks when they play Toronto here in Atlanta. Never gonna get used to saying that. When LA makes the trip to Atlanta to play Toronto on April 10th, I'm going with the Guillotines because I just can't keep doubting people that are just running down my throat that they're better than I think they are. Wales proved it by winning Six Nations, and Guillotines have proven it by beating the Free Jacks and then controlling and dominating the Seattle Seawolves. That was it was incredible to watch. Now, we'll cover the rest of the games that happened this past weekend. Rugby New York. They had a tough one when they made the trip to NOLA. NOLA wins 51-28. Rugby New York is starting off the season in a very interesting way. Their season opener, they beat San Diego, and then they make the trip to NOLA, who I thought they would have a much easier time playing against, and they end up NOLA ends up showing how good they really are. So props to you, NOLA. It was interesting to see that occur. And then yeah, what was the other one that I wanted to bring up? Oh, Rugby Atlanta. Thought they were going to be able to control Old Glory, but the Old Glory Rugby ATL matchup in the first season for them both last year, and now this season, it's been a very competitive game, and honestly, it's turning into a little bit of a rivalry game through here. So, Rugby ATL comes up short, 23-30. Old Glory DC wins it. New England Free Jacks take that loss that they have, and man, they weren't gonna go quietly and go into a 2-0 state here. They go into Houston and they control, dominate, just bully those SaberCats 32-0. If you're a SaberCats fan, it wasn't fun to watch. If you're just a fan of a powerful offense, strong forwards, quick back line, it was a fun game to watch. One-sided game to watch, but it was fun to watch. Toronto goes into Utah. Utah Warriors. They put up the shield, man. They put up the shield, and those arrows couldn't fly. Utah Warriors win at 39-24. The Austin Gilgronis, who were the Martini team that I thought was going to be, who I thought was going to start the season at least 1-0. 1-1, I mean. They lost their season opener, and then they have their home opener last week, and San Diego Legion comes in and wins a nail biter, 14-11 final. So it's been an exciting start to the MLR season so far. Now for this coming week's games. April 3rd, we have the first game kicking off at 4:30 Eastern Time. Utah Warriors at New England Free Jacks. This is a tough game, honestly. They both kind of play the same forward dominant, drive the line, crash ball style offense. I think the Utah is going to be able to control this a little bit better, but it's going to be a close game. But Utah Warriors win it, in my opinion. 5 o'clock Eastern Time, second game of the day. Toronto at Old Glory DC. Old Glory had a phenomenal showing last week against Atlanta. Toronto has had a rough start so far this season. Unfortunately, I don't see them making the turnaround this week. I think they're going to go 0-3, and they have then they have the rough feat of playing the high-scoring, talented offense of the LA Guillotines in the following week. But I'm going with Old Glory. I definitely will be paying attention to how the Arrows perform and control the game, if they're able to control the game. against Old Glory. If they're not able to control the game against Old Glory, I think they're going to have a rough game the following week when they play LA. And then Saturday, the 7 o'clock game, San Diego Legion at Rugby ATL. Personal bias. Go Rattlers. Technical bias. San Diego is a tough team. I think ATL will have their hands full. But if they're able to get the ball to the backs quick enough, if their forwards are able to control the scrums and power through the scrums, I think they're able to pull this off. So I'm going with ATL. And then the last game of the weekend is Battle of Texas. Houston at Austin. Houston definitely looking to come back after being shut out last week, and Austin looking to improve their record because they're 0-2. I didn't see either team having the start that they've started with. Houston beating Seattle in week one, and then losing to New England with a shutout. That was a crazy turnaround for me. Like it was a nail biter game in week one when they went 30-24 over Seattle, and then 32-0 against New England. Like that didn't make sense to me. So I want to know which team Houston brings out when they play Austin. If they play like they did when they played Seattle, Houston wins it. If they play like they did against the Free Jacks, Austin's gonna win it. Austin, however, man, like they played a tough, hard-fought game against San Diego. It was a nail-biter, 14-11 last week. And the week before, they had another nail-biter, 38-28, losing to Utah. Both games, they've lost by a combined total of 5 points. Houston had a nail-biter win, and then got absolutely destroyed. Austin has been very consistent, so I do think that Austin will pull this off. I hope that Houston can get back to form here because last week was a very shocking showing by them. And Austin has it's been a matter of time for they're going to get there eventually. So, Battle of Texas is definitely going to be one that I'm going to be watching. I can't remember what they actually call that game, their little rivalry. I'll get back to you guys. I'll actually post it in like a comment or something when I remember what it's called. But for now, Battle of Texas, Houston versus Austin. Once you have the Texas Cup, when Dallas joins next week, it'll be a lot of fun to watch some Texas rugby. Man, I love saying that. Like Texas football was always something that we talked about when I was growing up. Man, like didn't matter where you were, you loved seeing what was happening in Texas football. And now, man, you got three pro rugby teams in the MLR for Texas. I can't wait to see what happens. And just to throw this out there, Austin also has one of the league teams joining the NARL. The Austin Armadillos. Solid Texas name right there. Austin Armadillos. Not gonna lie, a lot better of a traditional name in that standpoint. Obviously, I know that the Gilgurneys and the Giltinis is because of their ownership group and the martinis that ownership group has produced. Business standpoint, props. Rugby team name, just my opinion though. So, but I'm gonna wrap this up real quick by announcing all the NARL teams that will be joining and start playing in June. So you have just to go through here real quick in the East, Cleveland Rugby Union, the Brooklyn Kings out of New York Rugby League. So back to back, 2 New York teams. You know how New York does, man. They got teams for everything. Baseball, basketball, football, everybody. They can't just have one team. Same with LA and Texas apparently. So I'm excited to see that going. Atlanta Rhinos. That's my team I'm going with. Just got it. Living in Atlanta. Got to stick with my boys. Boston 13s and then the Washington Cavalry. That rounds out the East. In the West, you have the Austin Armadillos. Solid day. Definitely makes sense being in Texas there. You have the Phoenix Venom. San Diego Swell. I love it. They have full-on surfer in the tube in their logo. It's sick. I love that. San Francisco Rush, Portland Loggers, and Las Vegas Blackjacks. I would expect nothing less from a team in Las Vegas. They gotta stick with the gambling logic there, and so they did. Nice logos all around, and then you get to the Canada Series. Toronto Wolfpack making their return to professional rugby. I'm excited to see them back. I hope they play well. I definitely want to see them come back to a strong showing. And Ottawa Aces rounding out the 14th team in the North American Rugby League. Those are the teams that are going, I want to know, what are your opinions on the NARL? Are you excited? What team are you going to be repping? Who do you think is going to be able to pull off the year one? Just plain and simple. Which Canada team do you think is going to be in the playoffs? You have a 50-50 shot. So, you got that going for you. Let me know what your opinions are for the games that are coming up this weekend for the MLR. I'm going to be looking out for your comments. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Let's rock.